After the visit by the Philippines Defense Secretary to a disputed island in the South China Sea, we'll be asking what's behind this move. And a major international publisher has retracted over 100 scientific papers after discovering they had been submitted with fake peer reviews, and most of these papers come from China. What's behind the scandal, and will things improve in the future? Welcome to The Point. I'm Li Xin. Philippine Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana has visited the Zhongye Dao of the Nansha Islands in the South China Sea. Last Friday, Lorenzana was accompanied by an entourage of senior military officials and about 40 journalists, both domestic and overseas. While ignoring warnings by the Chinese military, Lorenzana reasserted Manila's territorial claim to the region and said more reclamations will be started on this island. This was quite a surprising move, since it totally goes against Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte's efforts to improve Manila's relations with China by adopting a non-confrontational approach over the South China Sea. Now that the Philippines is about to host the 30th ASEAN Summit on Saturday, questions are being raised over whether Manila will seek to manage differences over the disputed waters or to escalate the tensions. Lorenzana's action a sign that Duterte is shifting foreign policies towards China. Will the current Sino-Filipino relations be maintained? For more insight, I'm joined in the studio by Aina Tangen, our current affair commentator. Aina, thank you very much for joining us today. Now, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lu Kang has made a comment last Friday that this move by Lorenzana runs counter to the important consensus reached by the President of China and the President of Philippines, which is to deal properly with the South China Sea issue. China hopes the Philippines will have maintained general peace and stability in the South China Sea. Let's first take a listen to this.
China and the Philippines have been keeping good communication and properly managing and resolving maritime issues since Philippine President Duterte's visit to China last year. We hope that this momentum can continue and the Philippines can work with China to jointly maintain regional peace and stability, as well as the sound momentum of moving bilateral relations forward.
So, Aina, explain to us what is behind Lorenzana's move. This seems quite a sudden change.
Not really. It's political theater. I mean, his boss, Duterte, is under tremendous amounts of pressure at home. He's gone back and forth on issues, but he's kind of crazy like a fox, in the sense that he'll say something, and to get effect, he is, after all, a populist. And then in terms of the real strategy, for instance, economic engagement with China, I think that's still in place. There's no reason for him to give that up. He knows the U.S. cannot provide the kind of support that the Philippines needs, especially with its infrastructure and being part of the Belt and Road Initiative.
So what you're saying, let me first get this clear, what you're saying is what Defense Minister Lorenzana did is in line with Duterte's will or intention, so it was not something that he went against the will of his boss.
Well, yes, but I mean, you have to understand, it's political theater. He's there with 40 journalists to fly the flag because Duterte was being accused of being soft on China, on being willing to give up, quote, Philippine lands, because this is a disputed area. You know, they have a name for it. Nansha is the name from China. But the fact that it's disputed and there are people who are using this against Duterte, he's fighting back with this piece of political theater.
What we have known from Duterte so far, of course, people have been questioning whether he is reliable and consistent, but so far, since he visited China last year, he has been showing kind of a consistency in his policy towards China. How big is the pressure really in his domestic area concerning his constituency that really he has to, you know, make such a dramatic move, not only sending his defense ministry and saying these things that are really not music to the ears of China?
Yes, he has very wide popular support. kind of things that he's doing to eliminate drug dealing and things and minor crimes in the Philippines. He's really made a huge effect. I mean, even the people who disagree with his methods say, yes, there has been effect on it. But there are a lot of people who say, no, we don't agree with how he's doing it. We think he's gone over the top. This is a person who, before the election, as you remember, said he was going to hop on a jet ski and plant a Filipino in the Nansha Islands and see, you know, when he said, I don't care if they kill me. He's given to hyperbole. But he knows how to judge the kind of moods of the populace. So what he's doing here is to appease the faction, to say he's being loose on China, that he's giving up too much in order to get the kind of economic outcome that he wants. And this is the way of balancing his things. Now in China, you don't do that. But when you're in a democracy, especially one which is kind of as combustible,
a Western democracy, let's say.
It's a Western-style democracy. It's combustible. I mean, you've had presidents, you know, actors, you know, all sorts of things come in. It's not that different in the United States. We're seeing this play out in Europe as well. So, you know, you can't blame him for the process that he's in. He's simply trying to survive and push forward policies that he thinks are in the best interest of his country.
Some people are saying really that he's being too soft on China, that he's trying to cozy up to China. However, what he has been doing is really to improve Philippines' relationship with China so that more trade can be happening between these two countries and more Chinese investment can be directed into that country, which desperately need this kind of investment. Aren't these in the interests of the Philippines, really?
Yes, this is the long-term interests of the people. But when you start having nationalist cards that are being played, when you're under attack from the opposition because you're saying you're giving up sovereignty, you're sell out to China, these are just names that are calling. But this is the reality of politics in this kind of democracy. For a lot of people, this is seen as weakness, but it is what it is, and if you don't play the game will, in essence, play you. So he feels he has to do this. You'll note that he was not the one who went to the islands. He did not bring an entourage. He sent some military people. He sent enough press so that it was going to get lots of reaction, and that's probably the way that China should look at this. Now, I know that it is of grave concern, as the minister pointed out, but you know, you have to understand the context. Otherwise, this will seem like it's a reversal. And I don't think it is, because as you pointed out, the future of the Philippines depends on getting infrastructure investment, all right, more trade. This is a country that's almost entirely reliant on Filipino abroad sending back monies to their communities.
And working as housemaids and
exactly
in this kind of... So as we know that the trade between China and the Philippines, since the relationship between the two countries warmed up, has actually grown a lot. For instance, the import of banana doubled. So that's a very good example. However, people will be suspicious of his intention and let them do that. However, on the other hand, don't you think it is also a risky move by sending the defense minister to these islands and bringing all these journalists? Because in the end, if you don't follow up on what you were going to do, it will also backlash again. What are the risks there?
Well, I know that's the way it seems, especially when you're in China.
Can he not follow up on this?
Well, he's not going to stop. Let's see what happens at the meeting that's starting on on
What do you
Monday.
think will happen in the ASEAN summit, as I mentioned, coming up this Saturday? For instance, we know that the last time there was this ASEAN meeting which was taking place in Laos last October after the big row over the South China Sea case. However, some ASEAN member countries decided not to make the South China Sea case a big issue on the agenda. What do you think might happen this time, especially when we are just seeing this visit to the islands by the Filipino defense minister?
Okay, I don't think that there's going to be, first off, it's the only adjudicated claim by the UNCLOS arbitration system and things like
Convention on the Laws of the Sea.
Laws of the Sea arbitration tribunal. Now they're separate entities. The tribal. Anyways, the main point is, remember that a corporation. All right, what they do is it's consensus driven. Nothing comes out of ASEAN unless everybody agrees to it. And this is a new kind of international model. it really is what the UN is supposed to be, except they tended towards this idea of American corporate things. If you have 51%, you win, and you get to impose your will on those who lost. In this particular case, this is much more Asian. And they say, look, we're not going to do anything unless we all agree. This is a much stronger thing, because when they do commit to it, it's meaningful. So expect nothing to come out of this. No one is going to look askance. Everybody understands the kind of pressures that he's in. He's being indicted by people who's claimed that he's a war criminal. He's trying to fight back for his political existence, not so much among the popularity of the people, but among the politics of Manila.
Finally, Duterte is expected to arrive in May in Beijing for a very high-profile summit on China's Belt and Road Initiative. His name is among the list that has been made public by the Chinese authority. Do you think the visit by Lorenzana has rocked the boat? I mean, he will be in a kind of embarrassing situation, right?
No, well, okay. This is
so?
Not a man who embarrasses easily, as we can tell from past events. You know, he recently said that he would be 50 times more terrible than terrorists, and he would eat any of the people captured alive. Oh. So this is he gives to hyperbole. He's a loosey-goosey politician who goes with the flow, and this is something that you know, Beijing has to kind of take into it. You know, China wants to do the Belt and Road. Every single country that they're going to deal with will have a very different language, culture, custom, economic, and political system. And you cannot judge other systems by yours. This is a mistake often that people accuse America of. They say, American exceptionalism, you must do as we do, otherwise you're not legitimate. Right? So China, you have to start understanding the context of things and say, look, they're going to do it their way. Do we have an understanding at its base core? Do we have aligned principles? As you pointed out, the future of the Philippines is going to depend on its ability to do trade and to improve its infrastructure. That has not changed. And I don't think that he will stop coming to the May conference, and I don't think that he'll stop pushing for Philippine interests.
Yeah, well, he seems to be a wild card, but deep down, I think he knows what people of the Philippines know him, what he is doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't elect him into office, right? He enjoys a very high approval rating still till now.
Yes, well, he's one of the people who represents change at any course. I mean, he's a populist. He's not unlike Donald Trump in that he says a lot of very wild things. But on the other hand, he does seem to have a very consistent view of trying to help his people. In his own city that he ran for all of those years, he was able to make a substantial change from a place that was crime-ridden, where you couldn't walk the streets at night, to virtually one of the safest places in the Philippines.
Yeah. Let's give him a chance. Let's wait and see. Thank you very much, Ina Tangen, a current affairs commentator. Well, here is my point. Now, politicians the world over often find themselves in a dilemma over the formulation of their policies. On foreign policy, that dilemma is often magnified because, on the one hand, they have to keep looking over their shoulders to satisfy domestic opinion, while at the same time they need to reassure foreign governments of their wish to improve bilateral ties. And sometimes the two are just incompatible. Now, this would appear to be the case with Rodrigo Duterte, and it is to be hoped that as benefits from closer cooperation between the two countries become more clear to all parties, especially after next month's Belt and Road Summit in Beijing, the relationship between the two countries will grow stronger in the months ahead. You are watching The Point with me, Liu Xin, here in Beijing. I'll be back right after this short break. A major international publisher, Springer Nature, has retracted 107 papers after discovering they had been accepted with fake peer reviews. All 524 authors involved are from China. The news has rattled the country's scientific community. Critics say academic dishonesty has been rampant due to a lack of serious punishment, while others argue that the publishers should also bear part of the responsibilities. After the news broke, a Chinese newspaper, the People's Daily, commented by saying defending truth is defending the life of science. For more discussion on this topic, I'm happy to be be joined in the studio by Dr. Yan Shai, who is Director of Journal Publishing at Tsinghua University Press. Dr. Yan, thank you very much for joining us today. Now, 107 papers, 524 authors from 129 research institutions were involved during this retraction. Now, this Retraction Watch, a renowned blog that reports retraction of scientific papers, has called it a new record. So to start with, just tell us, how serious do you think this incident has been?
It's a very big problem, especially for one time the publisher retracted more than 100 papers at once, and especially from one journal. But the new record, I think, is not new high. Just records happened in the latest, in last week. So I just discussed with my friend from some library or some research or some evaluation institutes from 2012 to 2016 on Web of Science database. There are lots of retractions happened in the past 5 years. On Web of Science database, some papers from United States, from Germany, from Japan also have been retracted. But this time the issue is very serious because in 2015, MSA and other foreign publishers also retracted some papers from China. And this time some Chinese education institutes and also some hospitals involved in this issue. So we have to pay attention to this.
Why there have been so many medical doctors involved? Some are saying this is the hardest hit area. Almost all of them actually are doctors who are very busy on the front line in the hospitals. Why that area?
I think it's a problem of the evaluation system in China. In the hospitals, the doctors are very busy. They have to look after their patients during the daytime. They have to do the operations, maybe 5 or 6 operations. They will stay in the operation rooms for some hours, maybe 8 or more than 10 hours. So it's very hard for them to do their daily job. But on the other side, they have to publish papers for the promotion of their professional titles.
Yes.
Yeah, so they have to publish their papers in the journals, especially in the high impact factor journals. So that's one of the reasons they have to publish papers. For some doctors, if they are very good in their clinical job, so it's okay for them to be promoted. But
for the majority of them, they would really have to show that they have published papers. What about, as I mentioned, the problem is really with the peer review system, that they have produced fake peer reviews. What exactly does it mean, fake peer reviews? And is there some kind of procedure or standard in doing that?
I think we have to pay attention to 2 issues. First one, the fake peer review information. For example, some journal publishers or editorial offices will ask the authors to provide some information for the true peers. In the scientific publishing, the peer is a key word for the review. You have to find in your field who is the true peer. So it's very hard for the journal publisher or editorial offices, so they will ask the authors to provide this kind of information.
Basically, there's a loophole there. Basically, it's like asking the soccer player to provide a name for a referee as well. Is there a potential loophole there?
Yes, some authors or if some people, they haven't done well in the field of the self-discipline, so they will provide the fake email addresses, so the paper will send to the fake reviewers. So maybe the comments or the evaluation of the paper will be good, will be benefited for the authors. So finally the papers will be accepted to be published. So that's the reason some authors will provide the fake information.
Does the journal have a responsibility in checking the quality or the authenticity of these papers?
I think
And in this case of the Spring and Nature or of the tumor magazine that we are tumor biology magazine that we're talking about, does the publishing house also need to do a better job in checking the authenticity of the peer reviews?
Yeah, I agree. The publishers or the editorial office is careful about the information of the peer reviews, especially suggested by the authors. If we provide information such like the email addresses as some commercial email systems for the publishers, you should be very careful. You should double check if the email addresses are correct for the review.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is also this almost an industry where third-party services can be found very easily, for instance, on the internet, where you can ask for help. You can buy the kind of service to help prepare your paper, for instance, in terms of language, or but sometimes they offer even the service to write the thesis for you. How rampant is this kind of industry in China, and why?
Because some higher education institutes or even the hospitals will have some requirements for the journal publishing, but most journals published in UK or in European countries and United States, so those journals have the high impact factor. These are the requirements for universities, research institutes or the hospitals, but we have to publish English papers in those journal publishers.
I mean, in terms of language, I can understand that, but how much do we know that the authors are aware of the kind of fake peer reviews they are getting? Do we know how much? I mean, can we really discredit the work of the authors totally because of this news breaks out about the fake peer reviews?
I should go back to your question before. The third-party service for language polishing is okay, it's accepted internationally. But if we have the third party to do the other services like to write your paper or to do some the research design even or to do some data analysis, should be very careful. Some journals or some journal publishers or editorial offices will not accept this kind of third-party service.
What is the Chinese government, what has the Chinese government been doing in trying to solve this problem? This obviously is a big problem. As I mentioned, the official newspaper of the Chinese government, the People's Daily, actually said defending truth is defending the life of science. So they don't want to see this kind of fraudulent activities either. But why is it still so rampant?
Chinese government, I know in my working experiences, they have done a lot to fight against the misconducts in academic publishing. For example, in the Ministry of Education, in China Association for Science and Technology, in Chinese Natural Science Foundation, and also Ministry of Science and Technology, they have their own organization or committee of fighting fraud on the misconducts. So Chinese government, the government organizations have done a lot to fight against this kind of problem.
Why has it not worked so far? Do you think it will take more time or more stringent measures needed?
I think it needs time because on the author side, they should learn how to do the research better and to follow up the internationally accepted publishing practice. We call it a good publishing practice. And also on the other side, the government, also the research institutes or higher education institutes, they have to set up their own system or they have to build up the internal system to fight against them.
Another thing that people say is there's really the cost of breaking the regulation or breaking the rules is really too low. I mean, your paper is retracted and you can pretty much go on whatever you were doing. Is that true? And does that need to be changed in your eyes?
True for some PhD candidates or even for some professionals. If they want to promote their career, they have to publish the papers in the foreign journals, and so they will the cost of the misconduct is very low, and especially for I think it's a top secret for the authors to tell you or to tell the others we have some problems related to these issues, because it's very dangerous, it's very harmful for their professional career. If this kind of misconduct will be disclosed, maybe the life will be destroyed. So it's very hard to find this kind of misconducts, and also it's very hard to punish them. But I heard some stories in Japan or in Korea and in some other countries, the punishment is very serious. They will have to give the misconduct people, we have to teach them lessons.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yan Shuai, Director of Journal Publishing with Tsinghua University Press. And you have been watching The Point, CGTN, and here is my last point. Honestly, I can understand the frustration of these doctors who are caught between a heavy workload and the need for submitting research papers in order to progress in their careers. The system, which bases one's promotional prospects on the number of papers you have published, is wide open to abuse and provides space for fraudulent companies to profit. At the same time, the lack of regulation and punishment makes the cost of these fraudulent actions too low. Even after the retraction of the papers this time, it is not known what will happen to these authors. If there is not a crackdown on such fraudulent conduct and on those who provide such services, we could well see many more papers retracted in the future. And that's all for this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. You can watch our previous shows on the CGTN channel of YouTube. Click on the playlist and look for The Point with Liu Xin. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time.